done the first part a few, just some hours back, and that was really engaging. We thank you so much. We are so interested in your comments because, like we said, this is leading us somewhere. And for those who have been asking about some of the things that we plan to do, we are going to be sharing details just after this session. We'll go straight into the session. I'll just say that for those who were in the previous session, there are things that happened there and that we will also be speaking to here. We have 3 papers to be presented. The first one by Professor Agbalajobi and myself. The second one by Oyebanke Elijah. The third one is not available, but we have the fourth one, which is by Marvelous Mary Ogunogo. So I happen to be the first one to present, so I will just go ahead and make my presentation. I'll stay here. I need to see the slides as they go. The title of my presentation is, "But I am not the crook." Oh, I'm not online. I'm not on the Zoom. It's yes, Sharon. So this whole work started in 2021. That was just slightly after post-COVID, and it was just triggered by some news and things that were happening across. And I just thought that it's like something is happening to the women. And I wanted to find out what exactly that was all about. And it's about the news of women that they say, oh, she was involved in corruption, and that and then we have this pressure, Madam Speaker resign, and the rest of that. And over time, I thought the work was just going to end there because I did a 2023 paper that was focused on Dezani and Listen Madrige. You can look it up online. And it was talking about feminized corruption and media, the role of media, transnational media in that. And after that, I thought, okay, that's all. It won't come again. And then other things started happening as elections were coming in and out and people were getting into the office. And so there have been several works. And in the course of this paper, which I have co-authored with Professor Agbalajobi, we will see some of the things that have happened over time with feminized corruption. Please go to the next slide. We cannot overemphasize the masculinized politics. I'm not even stupid, so we've talked about the masculinized space, and that space is not only masculinized, it's also characterized by poor governance, corruption, insecurity, political instability, high cost of living, and so on and so forth. And so when we talk about masculinized space and women in that spaces, just a few women in that spaces, we begin to look at concepts like political witch hunts. The screen, some things are missing. Go back to the previous slide. See. Okay, so we talk about political witch hunts, we talk about corruption scandals, sexist backlash, and those are the things that we wrap together and describe as feminized corruption. So whenever we see political witch hunts, whatever we call it, because I know that it's going to generate a lot of conversation here, but when we see political witch hunts, when we see corruption scandals, when we see sexist backlash, and so on and so forth, then we are looking at the concept feminized corruption. Next slide. We talk about women in leadership and women in politics. And usually when we do that, it's like women have an occupation, just like we have it in teaching, in whatever, and now politics is an occupation. And so there are occupational ladders. And as women climb that occupational ladder, there is also what we call the occupational hazards, the things that come along with women in their career. Of course, politics becomes, a career in this context. And so there are hazards. And so when acts of corruption become increasingly associated with women, then When we talk about the scandalization of women in leadership, then we are trying to talk about the concept feminized corruption. In this study, we are trying to look at two things: how sexual corruption is framed to become feminized corruption. So in the previous panel, people have said Natasha's case is not even is not a corruption case. But here in this paper, we are trying to see how that sexual harassment and all of the issues become a corruption case. And it's a theoretical paper, it's a conceptual paper. And so we will try to look at how that happens. And then we want to look at how women respond or react in cases of feminized corruption and how must it end. So it's lots and lots of questions that we are asking. Next slide. We look at extant studies on feminized corruption. I mentioned the one on media transnationalism, and that was focusing basically on the Zani and the role that media, foreign media played, in bringing her out, calling her out, and then prolonging the entire exercise. There's a work on feminized corruption as becoming a global reality. And in that context, we're looking at examples from across spaces, not only from Nigeria. We saw the case of the Brazilian president, what's her name now? The Brazilian president, sorry? No, not Lula, the woman. There is the Brazilian president, I don't have it here, but we have, that was a case. And then we have the South Korean president also, Park Geun-hye, who was also involved in things like these corrupt cases. We have across spaces like that. So works have looked at some of these things. And then we have the work When She's the Crook, Feminized Corruption and Women's Political Communication, where we are trying to look at how do women communicate when they are caught in the web of corruption. So apart from all of those work, next slide, we've also, most of the works have been looking around many of these women and in the Nigerian context. Again, the book that we're anticipating is titled Political Communication in Nigeria and Feminized Corruption. And so we're looking at 12 women in that book. Some of those women are here. And so it's a long history. Patricia Ite, Iyabo Obasanjo Bello, Stella Odua, Winifred Oyoita, Dizani Alison Madueke, Kemi Adeosun, Adenike Grange, Sadia Umar Farouk, Beta Edu, Sarah Ochepe, Anatu Musawa, Nenadi Usman, it's a long list. And these cases were cases, that cut across. Some of them, it's just a certificate forgery, and we still call that corruption case. Some of them, it's what do you call it? Embezzlement, bribery, misappropriation of funds, and so on and so forth. So there are different cases. Next slide. And with significant works on women caught in the web of corruption, their political communication strategies, not much has been done on women who scaled the hurdle of corruption and moved into higher grounds in politics. So what we have found is that most of these women, the moment there is a corruption case, just like the previous speaker from Kenya said, that they are forced to resign and they never return. So we have that happening also in our spaces. But the topic that we are treating this morning is about, but I am not the crook. So it's a rebuttal aimed at interrogating how women prove their innocence, fight to defend themselves, and maintain a clean reputation in politics and public life. Within this title, I'm not the crook, this study deepens research on feminized corruption by unpacking sexual corruption as feminized corruption. It situates this analysis around Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan and the 2025 crisis of the 9th National Assembly. Next slide. There are basic pictures that literature has shown us about feminized corruption. One, the sexualized politics for women by probing their marital status and often accusing them of infidelity. They spotlight women as lacking team spirit and the loyalty required for politics. They accuse women of fraud, illegalities, and anti-party activities without full proof. They silence women with bad press. They recruit social media bullying through demeaning memes, disinformation, deepfakes, and others. They stall the legal processes that can prove women's innocence or otherwise. They destroy the pipeline that allows women to mentor one another for sustainable representation and substantive political participation. And so, how do we describe sexual corruption as feminized corruption? We look at two concepts. There is the popular concept, one, to be corrupt. And we all know what it means to be corrupt. But the concept to be corrupted is one that nobody has been paying attention to. And so we look at to be corrupted from two senses. The literal sense of it is a corrupted person, one who is influenced or manipulated or coerced into committing corrupt acts. So one can be corrupted in the literal sense. And then we have the metaphorical sense, in which being corrupted connects with markings, taintings, distortions, and perversion, making something become dishonest or immoral. It is this metaphorical context that we are looking at. So when we look at sexual corruption as feminized corruption, we are looking at sex and sexuality that as they often stand as weapons for intimidating and oppressing people. In essence, weaponized to corrupt. So in the context of Natasha and the earlier presentation that we had, that she simply played the card of sexual harassment, we are not of that opinion in this paper. We are asking, how did sexuality come into the conversation? And how sexuality comes into the conversation to now paint Natasha as a corrupt person. That is what we are interested in this study. And so we contextualize sexual corruption in politics as sex for space. Next slide. Sex for space or sex for power. However, there is still a dearth of studies focused on sexual corruption in politics, which although falls within the quid pro quo and could place either male or female on the supply end, depending on who is seeking a service, such as political appointments or tickets. Nonetheless, women have been found more on the supply end, while men are likely occupiers of political spaces, and they continue to thrive on the demand side. Still, studies have not considered yet another angle to sexual corruption and how it may be used to scandalize women in political offices. So we are asking, is Natasha on the wrong? Let's look at the story. There was the place, it all started by her refusing to take her assigned seat. Who is asking the question? What are the procedures for assigning and reassigning seats? How did we get to the point where Natasha says, I'm not going to sit there? And then, so there are questions that come from some of these things. When a woman decides, to go against the status quo, they say, oh, she's disloyal. Oh, she's this, and all of that. And then we went to accusing Senate President of sexual harassment. We're looking at, is she on the wrong? And then we went to the petitioning of the IGP. We went to the reporting of suspension to international bodies. She went on to turning the Senate into ridicule. That's what we hear about her. And then they talk about lack of evidence for all the claims that she's making. And then she went into the letter of apology, which they say was the worst part of it. But then let us look at the other one. Akpabio, is he on the wrong? We need to ask also. Akpabio on the wrong. Earlier, don't forget that there was already something that happened before all of this issue. There was Senator Natasha, please sit down. We are not in the club. And so that happened, and that was closed because organizations, women organizations arose and said, Senate President, you have to give her an apology, which he did. Can we imagine that he's saying, I don't apologize to women, and I'm going to teach you a lesson since I have apologized? We're just creating scenarios, and that's it. So that earlier situation, and then the change of seat, and then suspension from the Senate, and the many pro-Akpabio senators who were talking about Natasha. And then the petition to recall Senator Natasha, they were saying our constituency should recall her, and then the court injunction. We all know how the court injunction ended. Whatever happened in between that, they now had to say Akpabio should go and say sorry to Natasha. We don't know, and we are not talking about it. Let's go on. So the question we are asking is, Natasha, and the way she has presented herself, she's becoming a spectacle, one who has succeeded, in facing the masculinized space. And if she continues to do that, that sitting is beginning to see that trend will continue. So they needed to put a system in place to silence her. And that was all of the things that we saw, the drama that came. But many of us who are looking and reading the things as they were coming did not look at that aspect of feminized corruption, placing a woman as not playing the game as it should be played, placing a woman as breaking the rules, placing a woman as asking questions too much, and going against authority. These are the things that we find in feminized corruption. And so we are asking, when we get to the masculinization of politics, what we see is that they now bring women in as commuters. They come into the space, they enter and they go out of political spaces without achieving predefined goals or the set offices that they are occupying. So I'm about rounding off. The sexual histories and trajectories of our men, that's what somebody said. Fungai Machirori says, the sexual histories and trajectories of our men in power, because it's saying we must study it, because the rhythm of their silently dangling penises, we may find a compass to their politics. So he's saying we must study the sexual histories because behind it, there are things that we may not understand. And then we look at the power dynamics and gender. Here we're talking about power over, we're talking about power with, we're talking about power to and power within. We see Senator Natasha displaying power within, and she was claiming power to when the system was claiming power over, and so we see all of these things happening. And then we see the weaponization of the allegation. And of course, we also see institutional safeguards, how the Senate continue to put different institutions, go to court, do this, do that. And then they're saying they should even imprison her while they are waiting for the, And so the question is, if you look at other blogs, there are blogs that we're talking about, how does it occur that it is the federal government that is calling, that is taking her to court over a case that she has, which is supposed to be a civil case. So all of these angles are not angles that many of us are looking at. We are just seeing Natasha as a troublemaker. Well, I should say that we don't know Natasha. We've never spoken with her. We're just doing our own theoretical analysis of the issues. So these are the things that happen when there is feminized corruption. The next slide and the last one. So we have women just get absent from public space. So all the 12 women that we have studied earlier, did you hear anything about them again? Even the newspaper will tell us once they return. And that paper, I think the 2024 article on feminized corruption says something about that. When they return, the papers will say, after 3 years of disappearance, this person returns. But we don't have that when it is a man, that, went into corruption cases and returned. Then we have intra-feminist bickerings. And somebody was saying that women are their own enemies. But we say that it is men that pitch women against women in those spaces, because they make it look like this space, only few of you. We can only accommodate few of you. So you better be a good girl and you can be here. So, and then we have struggles for media defense. Many of these women struggle, to now clean up their identities and their personalities in the media. And then what then happens? We have the politics of succession. Who replaces these women when they leave those spaces? Is it men or other women? And we have the politics of retention. How are women retained in these spaces? That would be all. And then we're open to conversation. So we have the second presentation, and here we have Oyebanke and Oluwatomilola Ayeni, Oyebanke Oyelaja and Oluwatomilola Ayeni. They will be speaking on the portrayal of feminized corruption in newspaper cartoons, the case of Patricia Ete, and you have, I'll give you 10. Okay, 10.
Okay, so I'll be presenting half, and my other presenter online she'll be presenting the other part. So what we did was portrayal of feminized corruption newspaper editorial cartoons, the case of Patricia Ete. This is still a work in progress, so would like to listen to your contribution, how we can work on it better. So background to the study. From research, women in Nigeria make up about half of the population, but they are hardly represented in political offices. Most government positions are still held by men. For instance, in the 9th National Assembly, 2019-2023, out of 469 lawmakers, only 21 were women. So what we are trying to say here is that despite constitutional reforms and all other things trying to encourage women to join the political spaces, to join the agitation for better government, and to do more in political spaces, women are still kind of left behind. They are still not joining. And there are some factors that are contributing to this reasons they are not joining the political spaces. Yes, I've heard from the other panel where we had our co-presenters where they talked about things that are affecting women in politics, and I had some disagreements. Yes, but sometimes the way women are framed in media is actually really affecting their self-esteem, their self-esteem, their participation, and the way they want to voice out. Nobody likes to. Some of us do not like to be out there and tagged particular names, especially when it's about our family, our friends, or anybody that really matters to us. So women are sometimes careful. People are sometimes careful. And now when it comes to a woman who already has children and family members, especially her husband. So the controversy of Patricia Ete. Patricia Ete resigned as Nigerian speaker amid 628 million corruption allegations. Yes, these are just allegations. It has never been to court. They never had anything to do about her impeachment, but she was accused, and there are indictments. There are a lot of speculations that she did this. There are instances in the media where she was where caricatures were used to portray her that this is what Patricia Ete looks like after using the supposed money she claims was used for something to do another thing. Then we looked at the role of media in portraying women's political engagement. Studies show that media sexism negatively affects women's political ambitions, discouraging participation and public recognition. Shaibu and Gambo 2021 and Omotosho 2023. That was what I was trying to say before that. The way women are sexed in media actually give a negative impact in the way they want to contribute. They might have a lot to say, but just because they have things they want to protect, they have images they want to protect. Some of them are pastors, some of them are mothers. Yes, let me even use mothers. And they know that media is forever out there. They don't want their name to be tarnished or be seen for something they never did. So instead of just voicing out, they feel, okay, let me just stay in my house and stay put. So importance of editorial cartoons in political communication. Cartoons provide potent satirical commentary and shape public opinion. Most of us growing up, we all watch cartoons, we've all seen cartoons, and they give us the kind of image that we get to resonate with as we are growing up. They have a way of living forever experience to us, even when we never encounter those things. So when a particular young girl see how Patricia Ete is portrayed online, even when she was never told that, this was what she did, there was never a case about it. So me reading about it as a young girl, a 12-year-old girl, that my parents are exposed and have given me access to media, seeing that I might not be encouraged to even join school politics, not to talk of the Nigerian politics out there. So humor is central to editorial cartoons. Humor is one of the tools that I use in editorial cartoons. On 2014 and Adia one, Linda Mala 2024, we read those books, and that was where we got them from. So statement of the problem. Omotosho 2019 argues that both conventional and new media perpetuate patriarchy, portraying women as vulnerable and morally deficient. Fakora 2020 did extensive research on gender representation in media spaces. And Omotosho Afani again explores how media practices token representation impact women's legitimacy in political spaces. Also, Omotosho research on feminized corruption has articulated how corruption is gendered to stifle women's access to public offices. Feminized corruption, what we are doing, my partner and I, is we are trying to conceptualize Omotosho's concept of feminized corruption. We are trying to conceptualize the theory that, if feminized corruption is there, if it is used as a weapon in all of these media spaces, it's as a way of affecting these women, both psychologically, morally, and other forms. So we did literature review. We did literature review on Omotosho Afani and Omotosho Lutoku 2017, the glass cliff phenomenon. Women are disproportionately placed in precarious leadership roles and are held to higher moral standards. once you are in a space as a woman, people believe, oh, you are a mother, you should be right and up to it. You should be able to point out to the things that are wrong. And especially, one thing we've noticed from research is that it is when a particular space is having problem, that is when they will go and look for one woman to put there, then so that she will be nailed. This is a common practice and it is really ongoing. So, and again, editorial cartoons and corruption allegations, humorous caricatures are tools for fast broadcasting and amplification of absurd messages that trivialize political misconduct. There are tools that people use in newspaper cartoons to send a message to others. They might be subtle about it, but it's so loud. Imagine putting Patricia Ethe's husband in one of the findings, and where the husband was really heavy with corruption, and the wife was just so small there. What are they trying to do? That is our family in the media. So that is trying to say maybe our husband actually pushed her to embezzle the money. It is really sending a wrong signal. So she had to withdraw, she had to go home, and despite her trying to, say a lot of things about it, they still made those things that she was trying to say look as if she was not saying anything. There's a particular place in the finding, my partner will touch on that, where they drew a caricature of her saying, oh, I'm working on today's agenda. And what she's working on was how to make sure that there was adjournment. Like there was never a case about it. That was what the person wrote there. She might have never said that, I don't know Patricia Ete, but that was what the newspaper. And the newspaper we are working on is Nation 2007. We were specific about that, but it was purposive because that was where we got most of the cartoons from. So feminized corruption as an analytic framework captures how media constructs corruption as gendered violence through personal attack, moral framing, and visual symbolism. That was Motor 2023. This framework centers women's experience in political scandals, guiding the identification of visual patterns and moral language in cartoons. The major thing that we notice is the findings that the cartoons were majorly talking about moral, that she had no morals, that instead of her concerned about the allegations that they put on her, she was busy moving around to salons, she was doing things that she was not supposed to do. That is what the Nation 2007 was putting out about Patricia Ete. So the methodology we used, the study employed archival method for data collection. The Nation 2007, the Nation 2007 is an old newspaper. So the only way we could have access to this is to do an archival research. So, Tomilola, she will just go to the findings, so as to let you know what research and process, so you know what we got from.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I would try to run over on the aim and objectives. So building on Sharon Omotosho's work.
Findings.
The findings? Okay. So our findings, number one, is domestic and beauty symbolism. Cartoons in this the Nation newspaper 2007 depicted Ete with airbrushes, saloon settings, and all of that, just to show that all what this woman cares about is just her beauty, is just about herself, and she's not bothered about improving the state of people that she's leading. And also, which is a very bad thing to think about a woman, this means that she is not worthy enough to be in that position as a speaker. This is what they are just trying to project. And also, humorous representation through caricature. Imagery focused not on these images, these caricatures, these cartoons were focused on the personal life of Patricia Ete, and not on the main issue, which is the corruption allegation. But it's on a personal and a moral failure as a woman who had failed the trust of womanhood. They believe that as women, we are supposed to be perfect. We are not supposed to be seen doing any corrupt practices. So they feel like, and with the use of humor, it was so difficult to concentrate on the main issue, because humor being a double-edged sword, they were able to hide under this using cartoons, trying to say what they think about Patricia Ete, which then distorted the original issue, which is the issue of corruption. And then, of course, people are easily attracted to cartoons and funny images, so they kind of swayed the thinking and the concentration of people from the original issue. Then number 3 is disproportional personalization. Compared to male politicians involved in corruption, Ete's portrayal received a disproportional moral tone, supporting Omotosho's assertion of gendered moral framing. Like I said initially, I said women are expected to be, the moral standard given to women is quite high, so they are expected by the society, of course, so they are expected to keep to that moral standard and not and they are not expected to be seen in corrupt practices. Compared to men, despite their corrupt practices, they still allow them in these spaces, even if they are going to make funny cartoons about them. It doesn't go really far probably because of their level of exposure in politics, their percentage, their level of participation in politics. And also the last one is media as gatekeepers. Editorial cartoons acted as visual gatekeepers, reinforcing societal discomfort with women in power by exaggerating their missteps and delegitimizing their leadership. With this, with media being the medium through between being the medium between the masses and the politicians. With this, they're able to show what it is not, and then misinterpreting what exactly this woman is up to, causing a discomfort for this woman, and then exaggerating whatever it is that happened, and then watering down our efforts as a speaker in the space. These are the papers we got our findings from, showing images of people talking about Patricia Ete and also Patricia Ete. What? Okay.
2 minutes. Move to conclusion and recommendation.
Okay, so conclusion. Cartoons from the Nation's 2007 weaponized Ete's femininity, contributing to a broader pattern of moralizing female politicians. The visual narratives align with Omotosho's concept of feminized corruption. The media portrays corruption as inherently gendered moral failure. Then the last one is that this acts like political violence, discouraging women's entry and retention in politics. And then our recommendations. Incorporate Omotosho's framework in media. Use feminized corruption as an analytical tool in future media literacy campaigns, trainings, and press monitoring programs. And also encourage balanced media narrative, support public education initiatives that challenge the perception of women as more morally fragile or incapable of governance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll go to the third presentation, which is our last presentation for this afternoon, and that is by Marvelous Mary, titled Witch Hunts and the Political Marginalization of Women in Nigeria. You have 10 minutes.
No. My name is Marvelous Mary. Yes, Marvelous Mary. Yes, Mary. Okay. The title of this paper is Witch Hunt and the Political Marginalization of Women in Nigeria. This is what I'll be talking about. I'll talk about its history, current representation, and gender gaps. I'll go into Natasha. I know I was talking about Natasha. When I was preparing this paper, honestly, Natasha's issue has not come. Natasha, don't do it. So it has not come up. But the person I was supposed to use has completely not sweet if I use the person. So let me still dwell on Natasha. So what I'm driving at is with the use of Natasha, only using her as just the place that we have now to bring to that book, but it is actually just a foil to use the generalization. You cannot go across all of them in just 10 minutes. So we use Natasha, Senator Natasha. Then I will talk about techniques of witch hunts, public backlash and civil society responses, especially with the case of Senator Natasha, institutional failures, And I think that would be the end. We found some. So we can conceptualize witch hunt as much as you like, lexically or stipulatively. But I, for one, I prefer this one. And I would like to read it out. Witch hunt is an attempt to find and publicly punish a group or a person of people perceived as a threat. This is what I want to go with. You can say it's my most creative conceptualization of witch hunt, but this is how I want to use it for the sake of this paper. Please underline and carry it throughout this presentation that witch hunt, as we're discussing it today, is going to be for a group of people that is usually perceived as a threat. Let's continue. Thank you, sir. Political witch hunt now is a targeted, unjustified attempt to discredit political actors, often through moral panic, false accusations, and media manipulations. I think it's beginning to make sense now. It's my earlier conceptualization. Marginalization, patriarchy in politics. I cannot talk about them. We've spoken about them now. So we can just go to the next slide. Now, this where I want to pick on a bit. The idea of women being marginalized in Nigeria has been institutionalized long before even Nigeria became Nigeria in the 1940s. Before then, if you go as back as Clifford Constitution, women had no right to be in parliament by Clifford Constitution. And it is only in 1960 that the first woman was elected into parliament. That is Muraola Esa. That was the first one. That's just 1960 here at first. So, but then we need to understand that it's not like our women have been sleeping down history and across cultures. Women have always wanted their place. They've known their place, they've moved for it, and we've seen it. And I'll try to just bring two examples. One of them is the About Me riot in 1929. This is just few years after Clifford's Constitution. So women have actually wanted and moved for their place in society. They know they've moved for it, but the society is structured down history and across the various cultures in Nigeria have actually been put in place to suppress them. Whenever we talk about Fumila Ransom Kuti, what I grew up doing is she's the first person that drove a car. That's all. Which I, for one, I feel is even a marginalization of the woman, marginalization of women in politics. This woman was a very serious politician. She was very, very active, and she led a number of protests too for the place of women in the political space in Nigeria. If you go to the next slide, we'll see these just details about the About Me riot. Then the next one, we'll see this beautiful woman who lied around something and what she was able to do in Abeokuta. Even from there, we have slogans that we still use to make use of, the chop, no more wayo wayo, enough is enough. These were she and all the women in Abeokuta that day actually wanted they knew their place in society. They knew that they were not just supposed to be at the background, and they fought for it. Next one. Contemporary exclusion statistics of women in politics in Nigeria. In fact, the previous election was better than this. I remember the previous election was better than this. But if you look at this, you know that I just want us to pay attention to this. This Interparliamentary Union study finds Nigeria as one of the globally ranking lowest female nation that has female representation in politics. And we are supposed to be a secular state. And we have other states where, by their structure, women are relegated. By their structure of society, women are relegated. But you don't even find them. Some of them are even better than us in women representation. So it is actually bad. It is bad. I don't need to go through these details. I don't think it's important because we've even gone beyond this before. The previous election, we had more women in parliament than this current one. Next slide. Now, we'll come to the Senator Natasha. Like I said, she's just going to be a foil for us to understand how women get rich funds and marginalized in Nigerian political space. Little background of her story. We need to understand what happened to Senator Natasha, being the first female senator come from her place in Kogi State. I don't know if you've forgotten, but you remember what happened the night before election. I don't know if you can still remember. Good. So it's not today that Senator Natasha has been tried, because when people talk about, I like how Dr. Shannon brought other perspectives to this and taking us back to we're not in a club. That statement, we're not in a club, before Senator Akpabio actually apologized. People just talk about it in present. Okay, she was asked to change it, she not changed it, she accused him. They don't go back. And then we don't even go like more 4 steps backward to remember how she suffered to get into that position. How she decided to say, this is a man's world, but forgive me, I will wear nika like a man and do it like a man and get what I think I am deserving. They broke the road to our house, to our village. What? Imagine, the night before election, governor is demolishing a bridge. They're supposed to lead people to yes, it happened. The night before the election, they demolished the bridge that links, bringing election materials, everything. Yes, you can find out this public information. It's not going to happen. Yes, and the citizens, because of that's why I was laughing when they said there's a recall for Senator Natasha. I already knew it was fake, because I know the people love her. They built that bridge that night. That night. I'm not saying a week before the election. I'm saying the night before the election, the governor asked people to break down that bridge. The people use sand to fill it with sand so that car could pass. And they had the election and she won. So it has been okay. Okay. We just go next again. Next. Good. I want us to pay attention to this. When we talk about marginalization and which one, we don't look at it in the light of, I want to even assume Senator Natasha was even wrong. Let's say she even did something bad. Because we've not established it, nobody has established it. Maybe before yesterday she was acquitted to pay 50 million because there was no case. They cannot find anything. They just maybe pay lawyers that 50 million, settle the lawyers for their stress. I don't know what. There was no case found on her. But look at different cases of senators that have consistently made a mockery of that hallowed chamber, as they call it. Senator Elisha, you know the story, he had sex talks. Omo Agege, that when we talked, he was not removed from seat. You know, let's leave this one. You can go up and then, no, sorry. We have Sani Erima. So we've seen people that have actually brought shame to that house, but nothing happened to them. So let's even assume that Senator Natasha did something. Did they even go through like how they would have treated a man if a man did something? Regardless of the one that did not actually do anything, at least allegedly still term that everyone is using. Nobody has actually found her to be guilty of anything. So can go. So that represents the unequal standards I have to watch. So you can go to the next one. Now, what are the mechanisms that is used in Nigerian political space to which fund? You can be using Senator Natasha as your foil, but it applies not just with her, but even the former person I wanted to use as foil for this study. This, you will find this, and if you find any other person, a female that has been which one in or marginalized, you will find this public smear. Social media influencers are paid, then they push a narrative, an agenda, then you have they begin to give her certain allegations, bring about her family. She has her children for numerous men. Sorry. So, next slide. We've seen there were a number of responses, thank God, I was happy for that, that actually stood for Senator Natasha. We saw some protests in Lagos, we saw articles, tweets, and a number of other things. Next slide. Next slide. Now, the impact of political witch hunt, and then I'll just go to what this thing does. Please, excuse me, sir. Can you move it up? I want to do something better. Okay, now, personally, political witch hunts can lead to career damage. Dr. Sharon made mention of it. Once this happens, nobody hears from this. It reinforces public doubt about women in leadership. We have it in the case of the Zionists. We have the case of the Zionists. No, cannot give a woman television. After all, look at one that was there. I see numerous men have not been messing things up. Institutional, it weakens democratic system and deters trust. But then, I want us to look at this. I'll read it out and then I'll just go to conclusion. Several female politicians have reported anxiety, depression, and withdrawal symptoms after enduring public ridicule, diminishing their interest in further leadership roles. And this is from a study. Then we have the one for undergraduates from She Votes Nigeria that saw about 62% of Nigerian female undergraduates who view politics as an unsafe or unwelcoming space for women. And I'll just go to conclusion. The one for conclusion. So what can be done? Because can just be like I'm just talking, but what can really be done? For me, the summary of everything that can be done is the will for change. It's not like we don't have structure or the manpower, we don't have good women or don't have learned women that can make change. We don't have the will to change. Those there don't have the will to accommodate women. So we need to have a change in our will. As a people, individually, our conceptualization of women, our conception and conceptualization of women ought to change once it comes to the political space. That is the only way we can reduce this witch hunt and reduce the marginalization of women. Every other thing there will revolve around the change of will. And I think that's all right.
Okay, please sit. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. We still have ample time to discuss, and I know it's going to be hot, so I'm going to be I'll come with my fist so that nobody hijacks the conversation. But really, we are open to comments, contributions, questions, and we are willing to clarify. So I see a hand already. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Who said 7? I didn't say 7. Oh, 7. Okay, so let's go. Number 1.
Really to new ways of giving this that we this. So I actually first presentation that aspect of the feminist speaking and use in a cash scale. I think as the protest and counter protest. Different women's organizations came up, but now some were pro Asante, some were pro Natasha, and it brought about that feminist speaking. And again, the positions of women just for different political parties. During that time, a lot of them were interviewed on national media, and they all had different positions about this thing. And then the professor Vegas that on social media when she started as a pro-Natasha supporter and later changed the whole issue. So these are very important.
That's me.
When you thought presenter, your topic carries Nigeria, honest, add that you can infuse another story into your work by getting Tayo
and yeah, it's work on those histories of Nigerian women.
Yes.
You know, while the South, I mean, by then, Western and Eastern, women gained suffrage in 1954. That's the first time we were called in the North. It was almost 1976, 22 years after the South. So you can see where the gap comes in. And even and I was not under the civilian, it was military ethics. So all the strong women had been given, and it was the military that granted that right. So you can look at it with your own and then capture the story of Sawawa. She's a very, very prominent figure when it comes to women's political rights in the North. You get me her story, how sand was born into her vagina because she stood against the control of entities when it came to women's political rights.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was the book, you have it. Sawaba made a statement that she has bled through every opening in her body just because of politics. So, I mean, just for the record. Number 2. Okay, thank you.
Also, we want people to show the line of appreciating the presenters for those wonderful presentations. I have few questions and comments. Number 1, which I can say is a comment and a question, since I goes to some more shop in your presentation title was among the group. You did mention of something because of the presentation that's the politics of succession and politics of.
Sorry, please. Oh, okay, so we'll take that right after him.
Or we take the one online now.
Please go ahead.
Politics of succession and politics of retention. The question here is, why do we think women always find it difficult to retain their seats, especially in the National Assembly, either as an honorable member or as a senator? Those who have retained their seats are those who belong to the power blocks, the likes of Senator Rugby, Tinubu, and Yabo Obasanjo. Others, after those ones I mentioned, I can't remember them retaining their seats immediately after their tenure. Then, if they are to be replaced, not another woman will be used, will be given chance to replace them in another assembly. Why do you think this is so? Then the second question or the comment goes to my sister, Oyibanke Oyilaja. I want to ask that why the choice of the nation? Because as I'm a legal practitioner, some factors inform contents of every media. Number 1 is editorial policy, and another factor is ownership structure. The nation you did your work of by 10 was an opposition media as of 2007. So you cannot expect the nation to write something in support of Patricia Ite, because Patricia Ite was in the PDP. The nation was the opposition media. It was believed that the incumbent president has stake or has interest in the nation newspaper. And we know the role he played being in the opposition in Nigeria. So I want you to know that the nation cannot be objective, rather they will be subjective. So that will affect your work, the way you want it to come out. If you extray other newspaper, you will discover that they will not portray Patricia Ite the way the nation portray her. And it was also in the news some few months ago, or maybe last year, that Patricia Ite was exonerated from the corruption cases she was alleged that time. So she was given 10 sets of explicit, and she was told that she did not commit any offense again. So all the corruption records was erased from our political records.
Thank you. Number 3, I believe you are taking notes. I'm also taking notes, so we can answer together. Number 3.
But turning to all the presenters,
We'll come back on.
This man has already said all I've done.
Okay.
But what I've done, only what I've done is bracket. Try and get newspaper of the same date with the nation lives. So that I can do a kind of comparison.
Sorry.
He has said all I wanted to say.
Okay.
That's
Thank you. Thank you for making it brief. Number 4. Hey, number 4. You are number 4. Okay. I don't know how I assigned it.
Thank you very much. Even though I love switches on gender, tradition, and women. Well, personally, the first and second presenters to be talking about the pressure and there's not the session. But see, I look at this aspect of feminize corruption. And I begin to wonder, see, we like even text, they will say it. Just like one of the panel that we had yesterday, going to also agree. Whether it's minor or major or marital, rape is rape. He will say corruption. Corruption is corruption. So by trying to, put it on gender, we are trying to put it down. Whether corruption is caused by a man or a woman, corruption is still corruption. Yes, and that led into what one of our secretaries said. The conclusion of presentation said the media portrays corruption as inherently gender. To me, corruption is not inherently gender. It is committed by both genders, men and women. It's not a national thing. We are the one in it. So we need to demarcate that. I also research into sexual gender, but the point remains that corruption is corruption. And the issue of quality, hunting, and is good. We know I will live in a particular society, but at the same time, I have come to realize as well also that most of the time, someone always said, women also are the enemies of themselves. To be sincere, men are not the one pushing men away from politics. Yeah, they are not. But at times, because they are not allowed to do this and do that, they say, oh, men are the one. We should be able to stand for ourselves, women. The majority, we should be able to rise and whatever I find myself, I learn to defend cause of women, personally. Yeah. But we it's about to rise and defend ourselves and put ourselves there. We should start this blaming game and shifting the men. It's not the men. We are the one. So let's rise on. And lastly, also we said that what we know about some equity is that she's the person to drive the car. I didn't know anything about driving the car. What I knew when I was young was that she was a person who would then protest. Yeah.
You must have gone to a different school.
Oh, yeah.
I said, she protest the protest. And then she was driving the car after.
Yes. Okay.
So it's not about driving the car. It's not about the test.
Okay. Thank you so much. Number 5, please. One house, please. Thank you. No, we don't know what is happening. And it's a men's show, so it's not like okay.
And also wanted to raise the issue about the newspaper selection. Well, it's good. You can just find the justification why
Yes.
the newspaper. It's important to help justify that. And the other thing I wanted to say, until this last comment, the whole presentation and comments was on the same line that so much controversy, but I think it's going to want to respond to the conceptualization of the feminized corruption. However, along the line of our conversation, there have been this repeated comments about feminized corruption, about its impact on the woman. For me, I think it goes beyond the woman, goes beyond the anxiety, depression that she feels. But rather, as I noted down there, I said it is mainly to distort public perception about woman representation, not criminalizing women's political ambition. And the fact is there. It's very simple. Let's take partiality and take it down. And let us also look at the rates at which female representation has also still since then. So it goes beyond just partiality as a person or a family, but the kind of perception, this feminized way of reporting corrupt issues has on the female gender. And then the other thing is that to marvelous really and I think you did an aspect of it to look at some similar cases. But I don't go further by looking at the issue of political disappearance. Let's take it side by side. Men who have been accused of corruption, where are they today? You don't see that. But what about their male counterparts? Pick one example, look at male counterparts, look at where they are. $1 the James Gori was celebrated by the two and the whole of them. The issue of disappearance and how this relates to
Thank you very much. Well, you are sharing the console, so just hold on.
I can't wait for you.
Okay.
So I was just getting something. My own is a country. I don't have a question.
Okay.
When you say corruption is corruption, you have just answered it perfectly. Corruption is not corruption. When some people get punished and some get celebrated. So that's what brings in the very nice corruption. When something happens and the consequences are different. You know, only die. The one is so welcome and the house. So you are a bad example. Women are not safe. We do not claim to be safe. So we all have frailty. Human frailty is normal for everybody. So when we offend, do it to us before you do it to the man. That is what evidence corruption in my own thinking. I want to actually forgive all that concept. Now my own comments now. Actually, my I was listening to it. I'm like, this is exactly what happens to education people like this.
Yes.
Exactly what happens. Well, we didn't know what to call her then because they made that so many things. She treats people, she kills them. Which slave owner did not treat that? People don't about them every Baba or nothing. Yes, if they are place of offended, they kill them. If they didn't sacrifice anybody, they would not sacrifice their children. They are sacrificed. She did exactly what any man would do. But because she was a threat, she had no power. She was a woman leader. And you can see how the stories after it's only one. I think recently somebody wrote that story and said, no, don't criminalize this woman. I forgot to leave on those that.
Aware was first. Only Aware was first to call attention to that.
Then now we wrote that story again and said, oh, this woman is not a criminal. She just what so it becomes feminized when what happens everywhere. When it comes to the woman's side, then we float them of proportion, we'll take them around the place, and I would call the family name and will make them to be afraid to come out.
Thank you. Can we have you now? And you come, please. Thank you. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Take it from
I'm just like, no,
You're ready. Go ahead.
I think I have. I like to think that I have it's very important. I think because when we talk about the people that stand by recognize corruption, corruption that is being seen by the changer. Not just corruption that is being perpetrated by I mean, and I'm not talking about corruption that women perpetrate. I'm talking about corruption that is being ascribed in that's a corruption that is being, like dealing corruption, corrupting the community. And I think that this is not just a political issue, it's not a cultural issue. You can see it in our culture. And I think more also the religious issue, the way that our culture and our society works, like we build to the family by the inside to the female. We bring the woman more scrutiny than we bring the man. we put the woman on spotlight and we never to the man. So it's not just for it, we must fit to meet in terms of the geographical context. What I explained to the politics alone. And I also want to say that thanks to them, the very based on the sociocultural context. Women are also accessories to perpetuating this corruption into their own gender themselves. So we talk about the issue of standards. The woman who claimed that Aisha told her to oblige her to bring even though we later saw in that court of she had been having a conversation with the senator Akpabio before that time. And then we look at other issues, like say for instance, Senator who has been a senator until now that she's now one person level. And how she was there in a position where she could use her influence to perpetuate change. Instead, she's using her influence and her position to perpetuate the existing patriarchal violence that women are experiencing. Because we talk about Natasha as a difference, let's talk about Timothy too, as a woman too, and how women are perpetuating the existing structure that violates women and corrupts the gender of women, and now brings women into more detail. Because we can have one senator and also have 10 senatorial.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next person, yes.
Thank you very much. I just want to, I would like to ask if an education.
You need to speak up.
Okay, I don't know if you ask the commission and justification for the education. I don't feel pointed out that it's under position and you will say, I believe that in media, there's something called balance and fairness when you are reporting. So since there's no balance, there's like an equal and unequal representation. It has negated the ethics of fictionality for PR.
Thank you.
Yes. Next. We didn't raise your hand earlier. Okay, so let's take all the comments first.
Yes, I think it's more of a comment on everything.
Can we be allowed to speak?
Yes, yes, just after, please. Hold on, we recognize you. Thank you.
For me, I think if we see each other as basic and human beings who are equal to perhaps some of the things not even happen. Why does the behavior of someone about something in the political scene have to be treated on a gender basis? What you have done is not done, whether it's a man or a woman. So if we hear, that's the way I see it, whatever I do, whatever the man does, look at it with a balanced eye, and then the problem is not going on all these things. I mean, sit down there. Is that where I'm supposed to sit, whether as a man or a woman? Put this thing in this particular compartment. Are you asking me to put it there because I'm a woman, or you are asking me to put it there because I'm a man, or you want a different result if it's for a man, put it there? Those are the issues. And I think that once we can balance everything, we will not be having this huge conversation.
Thank you very much. Okay, before we come back here, we want to take the last 10 minutes to do our responses. So we'll take all the comments and then let's have the online. I believe we're taking those.
Yes,
You are okay with taking all the comments and then we have to find out.
yes.
Is that fine?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. Online, please.
All right, thank you so much. My name is Samuel, and I want to say very wonderful panel. It's been so engaging. It's just that some comments and questions we could not hear. I'll start from the last presenter that talks about it's a men's world, and though the audio was not really clear with the last presenter. So let me take it to the second presenter for Ivanka, Dr. Ivanka. I'm sorry. In analyzing those cartoons, I was wondering whether you use semiotic or any art methodology or theory to analyze the cartoon. Why did I say that? It's because don't you think that cartoons sometimes are put in newspaper just for the humor. And I love the fact that you use humor just to entertain and not necessarily maybe to pass as passion or maybe to derogate someone. I was just thinking in that line for cartoons generally. Okay. Um, for Prof, the first speaker for Prof. Thank you so much. I love the angle that you moved in, especially the intra-feminist bickering that you talked about, that men pit women against themselves. But are you saying that you don't agree with the assertion that women sometimes are against women by themselves and they don't need men to be part of the playing the game of that bickering that you talked about? So, and the second question for Prof, I was also thinking, especially when you sexualize corruption, can be guilty of the sexualized corruption. Well, I was also thinking of your methodology in sense that I was thinking about how objective you're going to be in analyzing, though you are looking from the gender perspective or feminist perspective. But I was thinking, what methodology will you use so that you can be objective at least in your analysis? Thank you so much for a wonderful panel. It's been engaging so far.
So let me clarify. The question of methodology, is it to me or to Marvelous Mary?
I think it's to you, Prof, man.
Okay, thank you.
To you.
Next one. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Maruti, and I would like to commend this panel for this beautiful discourse. First, I would like to maybe chip in this. Prof, you started with a wonderful background, and you pointed out what really captivated me from your discourse was on feminized corruption. Um, I I'm just saying, let's say I feel, is there any, way we can link this feminized corruption with mental health issues? Because I don't know, one of the women who have been in power, who have been in power in Nigeria. I think flew abroad, and lately, she began to cry out for, for her health and whatever issues and stuff like that. I don't know if you can look at feminized corruption from, bring mental health into it. Second, Oyebanke, I love the findings about domestic and abusive symbolism, personal life intrusion, dysfunctional moral portrayal, visual gatekeepers. Now, these are good findings about the women gender. Now, I feel we could also equate this with, do a kind of comparative analysis with the male folk. Let's not see them as a celebrated corrupt leaders or corrupt gender. So I think we could look at those findings, compare them with the male folk. I think it should validate, try to balance it up a little bit. So generally, my question, I have some questions. The first question would be, what are the implications of these studies, especially the recent and the political marginalization of women? What are the implications of these studies on women folk, especially women who aspire to be in politics in future? And I will also ask, secondly, is that what are the roles of gender legislators? We are gender legislators now. Participating in all of this, we are trying to legislate, um, you know, give voice to the women folk. So, what are the roles of gender legislators in bridging this gap? Okay, and lastly, is there any impact of feminized political uh, or political aspiration or politics or political witch hunting on female aspirations? I think I've asked that um, initially. I want to thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any more comments? And then we'll respond. Yes, please.
My comment is marvelous. What you were presenting, thank you for the presentation. And thank you for the presenters. It's a very inviting session. While you were presenting, you mentioned something about.
You still need to speak up
women's
for the people
space.
online.
Okay. I said while you were presenting, you said something about women's space. And that got me wondering, then woman's space, there is space. And so I think you have to be careful about how you use it so that you don't fall into essentializing women once again, which is what we are fighting and agitating against. There's no women's space. Society is everybody's space. So we are trying to ensure that we recognize our identity persons, fellows, co-creators of our realities, we the men. So when you talk about women's space, you see we are limiting also with particular which is where we're coming from, that private sphere was women's space. So just notice that.
Okay, thank you very much. Wonderful questions, impactful ones, because we have taken lots of notes. We have about 15 minutes left, so I will just share it. I don't know, Marvelous will say he doesn't have too many comments, so we'll give him 2 minutes. We'll give Banker 5 minutes equity, and then maybe I'll take the rest. Let's go. Yes.
Thank you. I'll start with my lecturer. She's still teaching me, so she just taught me again now that I should be careful with her against my concept. So thank you, ma, for that. I don't have any. I was actually. It was for want of time that I couldn't. I'm speaking to. I don't know the person's name. That asked for the implications and what are the rules of legislators in. What can we do? What can be done? I'll just use my 2 minutes with this analogy. When I picked interest in gender studies as a male, I'm sorry for this, but it was somehow to people around me. I could work on African philosophy, work on many things that were hot. They were telling us in class some things that hot topics in philosophy while I was interested in gender. What happened was, during election in UI in undergrad there, I'll be asking my friends because I was not interested in politics. I would say, why are you going for vice president when you can go for president as a girl? Why are you going for vice president? There's nothing bad. Like, you have not gone and failed yet. Why are you going? So you can't worry me. So I'm bringing it to answer that question, that we need to reorient ourselves. And we need to reorient the girl child. We need to change that was why I ended with will. We have everything that it needs to change the narrative. Not just the narrative, but also to bring it to practical, and to bring it out. Like using the university as an example. When the girl went I graduated, but I learned that one girl became faculty president of Faculty of Arts. I never heard of that. I was happy. I was not a student, but I was happy. I don't know the girl, but I was just happy that at least someone is doing something with her. Someone else will campaign. And because of that, so she has moved for that change. I believe for us to see this change, we leave it out. We have to be the change. Man, woman, like my lecturer says, does not have to be relegated to any space. Man or woman have to move for this change, and then we see it come to light. Then to someone prof, sorry, to prof that said that spoke about yeah, you can be now. Okay, that I need to also broaden I'm just trying to use opportunity to thank all those that also contributed to my paper. I'll make good use of all the contributions. Thank you.
On behalf of my partner, Ayeni, I'm really saying thank you for your contribution. But one thing I will ask is, have you ever seen any narrative on media when it comes to caricature or cartoons where the man, you mentioned Dino Milaye, despite everything he has done, where he was portrayed in the salon or in the club, or maybe his wife? Have we ever seen that? No, I'm not, because I've actually checked some newspapers to check if his personal life was there, like his real personal life, like salon, barbing his hair, or doing these irrelevant things to the matter that we are talking about. So they don't show men in the salon, they don't bring their wives to the picture or paint their children. So why do you have to bring Patricia Ete's husband and showing him as the corrupted person influencing his wife? That is really wrong. Then they don't talk about the godfatherism. Yes, we know all these politicians are, they have godfathers. The women too, they have godfathers somewhere. And during the last panel, we heard that they are now godfatherism, or I don't know what we refer them to. So they don't talk about them when they are painting them that, oh, this person is corrupt. They don't do that. All they will do is talk about the person, what he has done, or they have a way of giving us this picture. And what humor and all these caricature things, exaggeration are doing, maybe in a funny way, what they are trying to do to us is to pass a message across. Pass the message across, and they are exposing their family, they are exposing their family, their personal life. And there is a place in one of our findings that we realized that they said Patricia Ete said what hairdresser can do, tailor can do better. So what that is trying to say is, okay, what men can do, female can do better. So she is doing it better. And that is like generalizing. And aside that, she was in the salon. Everybody there were just laughing. And in all other findings, when it comes to the men talking about the corruption allegations, it was just men and they were raising points. But when it was about the women, all the women, they were just laughing. It was just laughter. And I don't know what was funny about what she was saying, because it's not funny to me. So what we are trying to do in our research is to make sure that media is regulated. Aside feminized corruption, there is a need for media literacy. There is a need to, how we attack people's personal emotions, people's life on the social media. You can't just talk about me because you don't know who or where I will get to later in life. You can't just say anything about anybody, and that's one of the things feminized corruption is saying. And if this tool is used in media conferences and every other thing that has to do with media about corruption allegations, then maybe there will be a way that their voices and their allegations are being painted, which will not bring the wrong impressions to the reader or to children that are seeing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The first question I want to address is the one that is, why do women find it difficult to retain their seat? And I'll say that one of the reasons why the concept feminized corruption came is because they actually find it difficult to retain their seat. So I was looking at what, because they've talked about not being able to attend nocturnal meetings. They've talked about the space is toxic and all of that. But there is one that they are not seeing. So I classified that under two major categories, which is, there is one we call the clientelist line for women, and then there is the misogynist line for women. In the clientelist line for women, we find men behind her who are saying, Shebi, they're asking for women to be represented. You go, you're my sister, go there. And then she goes there, she has no agenda, she's pursuing the agenda of that man. That's clientelist. And if it happens that they're asking her, please pick some money so that we can do the next election, and she gets caught, she's on her own. And that is where feminized corruption comes in. So in that case, she becomes the image of the thief. Meanwhile, the actual thief is at the back somewhere. That's clientelist. And then we have the misogynist. The misogynist side is a situation in which you find a woman come into office, she knows what she wants to do. We have the likes of them, the very big names who were able to succeed, in the course of all of this, the Ngozi Okonjo-Iwealas of this world and the rest of them. How did they manage? It was because they came up with the idea that I don't want to steal anything. Don't give me anything. I don't want anything. And what did they do to them? The misogynist side, they began to kidnap their mother. Do this, do that. And they were telling them, we don't need anything from you. They were not asking for ransom. They were saying just to resign. So when you have that, those are two lines. And when you look at those two lines, you'll discover that something is actually fishy, which is why we are trying to look at feminized corruption. Somebody said, why do we have to name it? That feminized corruption, corruption is corruption. And my sister has answered, corruption is not corruption. And in actual fact, if you don't name it, you cannot nip it in the bud. You need to name it. That is why rape is also not rape. And those are the things that we do in gender studies. When we say spousal rape, we are showing you that it is possible for a married man to rape his wife. And so all of these concepts are important. Yes, they're important. So we are creating those names so that we can identify the problems and solve them. Yes. So we also have somebody asked about the method. The method, we have said it's simply, a qualitative study. We are doing critical analysis. We are doing reconstructive and deconstructive argumentation. And so you see that we're going this way and that way. So is Natasha wrong? Is this one wrong? Because we want to leave it to the readers to be able to tell, what they think about all of these. And then feminized corruption to link it with mental health issues. I say yes. And I have 2 articles online. You can just Google Sharon Omotosho feminized corruption. You'll find those 2 articles. They explain most of these things. There is one of the women, Kemi Adeosun, the former Minister for Finance. I was looking at their communication, and during the problem and after. And Kemi Adeosun made a statement in the newspaper. She said, I withdrew for 3 months. I had therapy before I could come back into public because I was crying every day. Yeah, so therapy is also part of the thing. So we recognize that part, and we are really looking in our research group that we have just opened. We are really looking for people from all walks of life to come and do research on feminized corruption. So you are coming from forensic study, you are coming from psychology, you are coming from economics, you are welcome, very welcome. And we have opened it up, to a national, to a continental level. We are looking for, scholars who will work. If you're Nigerian, you have a colleague in Ethiopia, you have a colleague in Zimbabwe. Let's see how these things operate across spaces. That is our intention. Then they said, what's the implication of these studies on women's political future? That's why we are doing this. Because we see that, if you notice, since 1999, we have had a particular period when women were regularly deputy governors. What happened to the deputy governors? Does it mean that the men would not stand the guts on those women? Were the women not playing the political card right? Why did that idea just disappear? So those are the things that we are trying to look at and to see how we can address some of these things, which are the 2 things we are talking about: political retention, the politics of retention and the politics of succession. They're important. And then somebody talked about political disappearance. That's just general. For all the women that we have studied, it's general. They just disappear. And when you ask them, even to talk to them, we are tempted to use that method of speaking with them. Nobody was willing to say anything, And so it's difficult because they have called me a thief. I don't want to appear in public to defend myself. Because when I start speaking, if you also notice, Desani is one of the longest cases. And if you notice, they will tell us in the news that they took Desani to court. They will tell us that she was not permitted to utter a word. That's deliberate. Because the case must go on and the case must get dead by itself. But the woman will never go scot-free. But the people who asked her to do whatever thing that she found herself in, they're still there. So these are issues that are, on ground that we feel that when we call it a name, feminized corruption, we can begin to look at it from different angles. So that is that. What are the roles of gender legislators in bridging the gap? We are here. Gender legislators, we operate across spaces. There are press people here. We have people in the classroom who can call attention to these things. We have policymakers that when you see it coming, and you can always signal to the person that this is coming. You have to find a way to deal with it. So we are all legislators across our spaces and we have to deal with this issue. Overall, I will just say that we want to thank you for your presence here. Please look it up online, feminized corruption, you can look it up. And then we will also share, if you're interested, you can share the call with you. We are happy to welcome you into our research group. Thank you. Yeah.
And the actually same close.
Sorry,